everybody, on this Tuesday, the 18th day of February. We join you on radio.com at 5 o'clock. We'll join everybody on FAN at 6, as we do each and every day. I thought we would get someone from Houston on because the story just continues where basically every day somebody makes some nasty comments about the Astros. In spring training, as soon as they get to spring training, they're asked whether it's Trout. Today it's Markakis. Tomorrow it'll be somebody else. Judge, you name it. So the piling on continues. And so the story, they remain the story day after day after day, as they will throughout the spring. Let's get to a couple other things, then we'll get the beat writer on from Brian McTaggart on from get some questions to him about what's going on with the Astros after a couple minutes. College basketball last night, first of all. Brutal loss for St. John's. Game they really needed. They've had a couple of good wins this year. They needed to pick up a couple of these games along the way to really buffet that resume. They're 3-10 in the league, which we know. Now they're going to have to win the conference tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. They've lost so many of these games. They're a score short. On days where they still get the defense to work and they turn the ball over, which they did last night repeatedly, they just can't make a shot down the stretch. I understand they're not at full strength, but it's just unbelievable. I like Figueroa a lot last night. Obviously, he had plenty of chances, and he just couldn't get it to drop. 2 for 17 from the floor. But what a brutal loss. Xavier scoring the last 8 points of the game. St. John's had a lead with 10 seconds left. That critical one-on-one, which, if you look, when somebody has lost a lead in college basketball, high school basketball, any level of basketball except the pros, when somebody has lost a lead in the last seconds, I guarantee you there's a miss one-on-one in there somewhere, and there was again last night. And if you just step up and make your free throws, it doesn't happen. And to have them score the last 8 points after St. John's had done a nice job of getting the lead, looked like they had the game won. And then how it transpired, we don't need to go play for play. But, boy, it was a very, very tough loss for them last night. And they have had a handful of these all season. They've had some, they've blown some very big leads and had a handful of these that just have not been able to close these games out. And they just can't get that one basket when they need it. They play hard. They played very hard for him this year, no question. He'll get more players that fit his style as the years go on. He's a very capable coach, but this has just been a very, very tough year, and that was a game that was very emblematic of the season and a very tough loss. The amazing saga of North Carolina. It's rare, to see any of these teams struggle like this. Duke struggled the 1 year when Mike was sick. Finished last under Pete Gaudet. We know that. That was an aberration. Carolina hasn't had a losing season since 2000. It is so rare to see a program at that level struggle the way they are struggling this year. I mean, they have not even won 50% of the games when they have had 10-point leads in the second half. They have not even won 50% of the time. They have blown 5 games where they have had 15-point leads in the second half, and they have lost so many games in the final seconds. Again, last night, another one. Now, is Carolina good enough to win a conference tournament? Yeah. I think, because of who they are, you could see them getting hot. Now, they'll probably get a run going and then run up against someone like Duke and get beat. But I don't think they'll do that because I don't think this team is capable of winning what would probably be for them. I have to look at the conference format, but it would either be 4 or 5 games in a row. It's at least 4, it might even be 5. For them to run the table, that's very hard to do. It's very, very difficult to do, especially in those very competitive leagues. When you have to do it, you can do it when there's no pressure on you, but to do it when you have to do it to win. Where the only way you're going to get in the NCAA tournament is that. But, Roy's probably not thinking about going to the NCAA tournament this year. Roy's been one of the most successful coaches in the country for a very, very long time. And this has been a very, very tough year for him. Really has. Really bizarre year, as a matter of fact. A couple things in the NFL. Number one, Drew Brees coming back for his 20th season. He toyed with the idea of retirement. He didn't think about going anywhere else. Now he's coming back. That'll probably mean Bridgewater goes elsewhere. And a lot of veteran quarterbacks are going to be on the move. We know that. The question is, and I don't know if Sean had a promise Breeze or what his discussion with Breeze was, because we know that Peyton is in love with Taysom Hill. He wants to play him more. I don't know if it'll be a shared situation next year, or if he'll give Hill a real chance to play, or he'll wait a year. But Hill is in his plans. There's no question about that. And that was one of the things that you wondered whether Breeze would come back. Now, New Orleans has had plenty of chances the last couple of years to have a big run in the playoffs, and it hasn't been there. So they'll try and load up and do it one more time. Two other things. One, the president today pardoned a bunch of people, including Milken, including the old, politician from Illinois who was on his TV show. Also, he pardoned Eddie DeBartolo. So, interesting that Eddie recently in the news because of what went on with the Niners finally having success and everything. Now Eddie is pardoned by President Trump. So, along with a host of others today. The other story is this talk of 3 quarterbacks now being picked in the top 4 picks, at least in the top 5 picks, and that there's a chance now, a lot of stories that the Lions, who are looking to make a lot of moves, may be looking to trade Stafford and draft Tua at the 3 spot. Now, they could be looking to get somebody to trade up and give them a king's ransom for the 3. Tua, with the positive physical news that he gave out recently, now he's still got to go through all kinds of batteries of tests from teams and everything else. But should he come through it physically, I think there is a chance he could get taken. He's not going to go 2 because of what's going on in Washington, but and the player that's available. But he will go 3. And I don't think he'll get past 3 now. I think, a lot of people thought he could slip to 5. The Dolphins supposedly want him at 5. But with Herbert and then Tua and obviously the Heisman winner going first to the Bengals, you're going to have 3 quarterbacks taken at the outside in 5 picks. It could even be 3 quarterbacks taken in 4 picks is even possible. If there's a trade there, that could happen where the Giants just slide back and let someone jump up and get in front of them. So you could see movement there after the first 2 picks, which are going to be by rote, and after the quarterback and the pass rusher are off the board. You're going to have Tua, you're going to have Herbert, and you're going to have a lot of teams looking to make moves right in there. The teams that are sitting at 3 and 5, but also teams looking to get up into that area. And we'll see. There's been talk of the Lions trading key guys, trading key defenders, trading Stafford. So we'll see what they do with this team. Remember, the Lions had a very strange year last year. They lost Stafford. They also had a lead in almost every game they played last year. Nothing was more emblematic of that than their games against Green Bay, which they should have won both games. They had a lot of games like that last year. It's clearly Patricia's on the block this year. He's got to get it done this year or he'll be gone. He knows that. And the question is how he wants to do this. Does he want to do it with a veteran quarterback, which would be the more logical way to do it? Or do they keep Stafford for a year and then try to bring Tua through for a year and get a year under his belt? Or do they just draft Tua and trade Stafford somewhere, or do they keep Stafford and then let somebody come up to 3 to get to her? So it's going to be very interesting to see as this unfolds. But Tua's getting positive verification that his health is okay as far as the hip structure and the soundness of the hip, where that injury is not debilitating, from what we understand. They feel he will be able to play with it this year. If that is the case, despite the fact you are dealing with an incredibly talented quarterback who is completely injury prone. I mean, shades of Joe Namath here in what you're dealing with. You could get a guy, when Namath came in the league, the doctor said, maybe we'll get 5 years out of him. That's what they might be thinking now with Tua. Maybe we get 5 years out of him. But he's that talented where he could make a big mark in those years, if that's the case. So, again, you got a guy who's been so brittle, so injury-prone, so breakable, but also so outstanding at the position that you knew he was going to be at the top of this draft before. As long as he did not give out medical information that was extremely cautionary, where he had no chance of playing in this season, and you were looking at least a year or 2 years down the line for him to be healthy, that is not the case. As long as it was not the case, he was going to be taken very, very high in this draft. And he never really wanted anything to do with the Bengals anyway, so it turned out to be a blessing for him. It'll be very interesting to see how this unfolds with the quarterbacks. And, of course, you have the Giants and the Jets right in the middle of it because they're picking very high themselves. So there's going to be players left on the board for them, or there could be players in this stuff as it unfolds. So it's going to be fascinating to see this year with a lot of intrigue around what these teams are going to do, especially in the first 5 picks, when they need quarterbacks, or do they trade for quarterbacks or let people come up and take the quarterbacks or whatever. It's going to be very, very interesting to see, and it's going to help a team like the Giants, who don't need a quarterback, and are going to be the beneficiaries of these quarterbacks going off the board and these trades happening right in front of them, or maybe with them involved, which is a very, very distinct possibility. As I mentioned, the main story is still the overwhelming reaction to what has gone on with the Astros. And the players rarely have been as outspoken as they have been now. It's been almost open season on the Astros here. You have not seen players, with almost very few exceptions, make comments. I mean, players didn't make a lot of comments about players when they were steroid users. The players made very few comments. Owners might have. The commissioner eventually did, but, way down the line. That's after Harvey Waxman got to him. But now you have seen players with really strong statements, to the point where they realize that the reaction from the players, no less the fans, is going to be so demonstrative this year that Dusty Baker's already, and to his credit, because this is why you bring a Dusty Baker in there, because first of all, he's very well liked and he's been around a long time, but he's already talked about how, hey, I have to get a declaration from baseball that I think my players are going to be safe. And that's overstating it, we know that, but you have already had players talk about how this was going to be dealt with on the field. And for the commissioner to go and meet with every manager and discuss what will or won't be tolerated in terms of retribution against the Astros. And remember, they don't come to Yankee Stadium until September the 21st. They come to Citi Field, I think it's the 2nd of June. It's early, but I think it's the 2nd of June. But that's not the same thing as coming to the Yankees. And you've had, obviously, now teams that weren't even involved with them, teams that may have gone in the regular season. And it's going to be interesting to see, how much the Astros have pushed the talking. It's interesting. The only one who has really talked openly has been, or has answered any of the critics, has been Correa. He's been the guy. So that's why I figured we'd get somebody on today who covers them, because they remain the story and what their reaction is going to be and what he hears about all this stuff. So we got someone who covers them, covers the Astro beat for MLB.com, Brian McTaggart. He'll join us right after that. Brian McTaggart covers the Astros for MLB.com, and he joins us now. You can get him on Twitter at Brian McTaggart. Brian, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good, Mike. How are you?
Listen, every day as this unfolds, as we get a little closer to games and spring training, somebody makes more comments. Players get to camp and make strong comments against the Astros, and we see a new chapter to this every day. From someone who's in the middle of it, how constant has this been for you guys?
Yeah, it's been constant. It's been, camp's a week old, and, every day at camp, it's been a hot topic. I will say today, it did seem to lessen a little bit. Dusty Baker was asked this morning about Nick Markakis' comments. He kind of rolled with it and had fun with it. He said Markakis is normally a quiet guy. He must have made his Tweeties today. But yesterday, there were lots of questions about, really what everybody said. But, it's, something that we know is not going to go away a little bit. But I think, now that they're on the field together for the first time as a team, they're trying to focus on baseball a little more. It's hard, but it's been 7 days in the camp. It's been a hot topic all 7 days.
Those of us who know Dusty a long time, he's the perfect guy for this because he's that likable and he's been around a long time. He'll diffuse a lot of this stuff, which he's very good at doing. I think he was a very good choice from that standpoint. What would you say about when you've gone to the players, when you've all tried to talk to the players about this stuff? Have they been, to a man, have they been open, or has it been that, hey guys, enough's enough and we're done with this stuff? Can you still go ask them about what Trout says? Can you go to them each day with new stuff, or are they done with this?
Yeah, and I think for the most part they're still talking about it. Today was the first day I heard any player say, I just want to stick to baseball today. Don't ask me, about anything else. Not in a bad way, but just kind of setting some ground rules. But that's really the first time that, I've heard that. Now, yesterday was the first time the full squad worked out. So other than the apology day a week ago, it was the first time we had heard from, Springer and Altuve and Bregman and those guys. So it's not like they've been asked about it a lot. But, so far they seem open to talk about it. I'm sure that's not going to always be the case. And it died down a little bit today. I think very few players were asked about it. Dusty Baker was asked about it, like I said. But so far, I think if we were to approach a player and ask him about it, we'd get an answer.
Do you? What would be for the group of the guys, the main guys? Have you sensed any anger in them yet? Have you sensed any weariness with this stuff, or have they been pretty much understanding this was going to happen and they had to deal with it?
Yeah, I think they knew it was coming. They had, a team meeting. They knew it was going to happen. They knew they had to deal with it. I don't sense any anger. No, I sense, frustration. And I do sense, I know it probably doesn't come out a lot, but I do sense there is some remorse in there at what they did. I feel it's really worn on the guys by the way, just that they're going around. They're just, you can tell that they're just not as happy or as, the pep in their step isn't quite there as we've seen in years past. They're not quite as loud and boisterous in the clubhouse. So you can sense it's taken somewhat of a toll. And, maybe that'll change, too, as they get going a little bit now. I did see some guys smiling today at BP and stuff like that. But, I think there's no doubt this is, taking a toll on the players.
Now, there's been talk of we're talking with Brian McTaggart, who covers the Astros for MLB.com. There's been talk of Manfred going and meeting with the managers about retaliation. They've even put a number on how many times the Astros are going to get hit this year. Is there any thought that retaliation could start in spring training, or is that figured that it's only going to be in a regular season?
Yeah, I don't think they expect anything during spring training. I don't, Manfred was down here in Florida the other day, and the managers who were there sort of warned them that, hey, we're not going to tolerate this. And I think the Astros got to know that some of this is coming, and they're going to deal with it. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think the over/under on hit by pitches is like 80.
Yeah, 80 something. It will be an under. It will be an under because it will not happen. It will not be tolerated. We know that.
Yeah, but every time an Indians pitcher or or whatever Angels pitcher hits one of their guys, I think we'll see the Astros strike back. I mean, do they want to put their star players and the other team in that position as well? I don't think anyone needs an all-out war at this point. But I think there are going to be some guys showing their frustration on the field. But I think the biggest toll is going to be in the stands, and we've seen some of that already at practice yesterday when someone ran up and banged a trash can behind the fence while they were taking batting practice and ran away. So this is spring training when this is going on. So I can only imagine what it'll be like when they go to Anaheim and Angels fans come down there, or They don't go to Yankee Stadium until the last
until
week
September.
of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still
They'll be
think
waiting
it'll be
for
a
him,
hot.
that's for sure. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm not a believer in the. I mean, I don't like this idea that teams feel like they were cheated. I don't buy this for a second. I think that's overreaction. Listen, that they should turn back the championship. I'm not a believer in any of that. I think the owner handled it terribly that day. I think they did a bad job. None of us know how big a factor it was. None of us know. So the idea that we do is nonsense. And as I said, Yankee fans should be quiet, and Dodger fans should be quiet, and all the players should be quiet because they didn't win it on the field. So what do they want to do? Want them to give them a championship? So these guys won on the field. We know that. We know that they had an edge. We don't know what the edge was. But the idea that they didn't win it fair and square to me, or they didn't win it, whether they won it fair and square, who knows? I mean, but to me, there's a fine line here that we're dealing with that makes it very hard to figure out exactly how big a factor it was. Then you hear these reports, and I'm sure you've heard a million reports that we don't even know about, but that Altuve didn't even want to take these signs. I mean, Reynolds said that on TV, and then a couple of guys, Correa even backed them up on that. So, I mean, you're probably still hearing new stuff all the time, right?
Yeah, Correa, Josh Reddick, Correa said that Altuve and Reddick did not use the signs, but you're right. It's sort of like steroids in that, we know that tons of guys took steroids. How much did they help? We don't know.
Right.
I mean, they wouldn't have done it. Obviously, it wouldn't have helped.
Sure.
You talked to the Astros about the Dodgers, like Correa said. Bellinger threw a ball away in the first inning of Game 7. And Correa brought it up the other day. He said in the ALCS in 2017, the Yankees scored 3 runs in 4 games. That had nothing to do with what the Astros were doing offensively.
I said the same thing. I said the same thing. Absolutely. That's just,
you're not going to win a series when you scored 3 runs in 4 games. So they're saying we pitched the ball really well. And yes, we did something we shouldn't have done. But just to say that, to give someone else the championship, no, we're not doing that.
Hey, the Yankees lost that series in my mind because they couldn't hit your starters out of the bullpen. That was the biggest thing that happened. Your guys came out of the bullpen and killed them. They couldn't get it. They couldn't get a hit off McCullers. They couldn't get a hit off anybody you brought out of any of the starters who came out of the bullpen were great in that series.
Yeah, well, same thing in the World Series. Charlie Morton comes in Game 7 on the road when, it appears that they weren't using the trash can and throws 4 innings. So, yeah, it's hard to say, this home run or this hit. And, Correa even broke down. He said a lot of these hits and home runs, especially in Game 5 of the World Series, came with guys at second base to where they were using multiple signs. It was impossible to decode signs, and we were still driving those guys in without, any electronic help.
It seems from a distance, we're talking with Brian McTaggart, he covers the team for MLB.com. Correa, to me, has been the most believable, and he has been the one who has offered the most when I've seen him. Has there been anybody else who I haven't seen who's been as good as he has?
No, he's been good. He's sort of come up as the spokesman, so to speak, for this. He was very good on Apology Day, as we call it. He had more details than anybody. He was more candid than anybody, and then come back out, give the interview to MLB Network, which he turned around and gave to me and some other reporters. Just very candid, very honest. You could tell he was very sincere. Yeah, I mean, I think George Springer did a nice job as well, but Carlos has really stepped up to sort of be the spokesman for the team, defending Jose Altuve, saying, wait a minute, this guy did not use the system. They banged the can sometimes. He didn't like it. He's won 3 batting titles. He won one in 2013. He's been a great hitter for a long time. And, and we asked Jose Altuve about, did you use the trash can system? And Jose didn't even want to address it. Josh Reddick did. He said, no, I didn't use it. I have enough to think about up there. I didn't want anything else in my head. But, Jose left it to Carlos. And you're right. Carlos has really stepped up and done a nice job, I think, being the spokesman for the team.
I went and looked. Altuve in a postseason in 2017 did not hit on the road at all, and he hit great at home. But in the regular season, he hit better on the road than he did there than he did at home. His numbers were much bigger on the road than the regular season in 2017.
Yeah, he had one of the great all-time road. I think he was close to 400 on the road in 2017. I think for most of the year he was over 400. I think he was close to 500 at some point on the road. Hit one of the great away-from-home seasons at the plate in history. The tables kind of turned in the regular season. Yeah, the Astros had an LPS 200 higher as a team at home. But, yeah, on the road that year, even as a team on the road that year, they were way better. They averaged run more per game on the road than they did at home. They claimed they weren't using the system on the road. It's just too hard to do. So, I think Altuve, this is probably going to tarnish him a little bit. He's the guy who could be headed for the Hall of Fame, but just like the steroid era, I think we get further down the road. People are like, you know what? I don't know if it helped or not. he was a great player. He's a great hitter. And, I think he'll come out of it okay, probably at the end of his career.
I watched this take a toll on A-Rod. It clearly did. I mean, and he was kind of the mark man in baseball. And then he went after them and in a silly way, and it cost him. It came to my show and did it. I mean, as a matter of fact, that whole interview that time and everything. So I watched with him, and look at the way he's reclamated himself since then and how he is regarded now. So, he's been forgiven really almost completely. Now, they're not in the Hall of Fame, those guys, yet, but I mean, he's been forgiven, and look at the way he's treated. I mean, to talk about him now on TV, doing games, and even maybe owning a team, all these different things. So I agree with that, but it's still they got to live through this season. What kind of impact do you think it's going to have day to day with this team this year? Can you tell?
I think it will have an impact. I mean, I think it's going to be tough for them to go on the road and hear this every day. It's going to be vicious. I think they know that. I think we know that. It's just human nature. I think it's got to take a toll when every day you go to work, someone's saying you're a cheater, they're whistling or banging trash cans, or and who knows what else will happen on the road in hotels if there's going to be fans there, or whatever. But how they deal with it, I think, is to try to win. I mean, that's what you keep hearing is that. We were 8 outs away last season. The players are saying from winning a World Series, where there's really, other than the silly buzzer thing, there's really no, proof or nothing in the report we did anything wrong. And so they're still going to be one of the teams to beat in the American League. And I think they're going to be very, very motivated, I think, to go out there and really stick it to everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch because they are still a very good team. We know that. Now, the accusations, you got players still saying, I know they were doing something last year, but nobody's come up with any evidence that they're doing anything. The only evidence is that Altuve went inside and didn't let him rip the shirt off, which I don't know if that, I mean, I never gave it any thought to know if that's suspicious or not. I mean, you know the team better than I do. Was that something that, as they celebrated, did that stick in your head? Wow, what's Jose doing?
No, I mean, we did ask about that after the game, and there was a walk-off earlier in the season where they completely ripped off his shirt, and Jose didn't like it. So I thought, that's just what I thought when he was coming, home, and he didn't like his shirt being ripped off for whatever reason. Why after a couple minutes he went down in the clubhouse, I don't know. I do know anytime they've clinched and they've had a champagne celebration in the clubhouse, Altuve tries to stay out of it. He doesn't like the champagne, so he goes about things in a little bit different way. But I think the buzzer thing is completely unsubstantiated. I mean, the players had a stronger opinion about the buzzer thing than anybody else, whether it's Lance McCullers, even at FanFest, Bregman, when he wouldn't talk about the sign stealing, shot down the buzzers immediately. Correa was emphatic on the buzzers. I mean, MLB investigated it. So, I think the buzzer thing is kind of nonsense.
A lot of people. Now, how many years have you been covering a team?
17th year.
So you've been around them a long time. A lot of people who I talk to who do baseball games all year and are traveling all year tell me, first of all, they told me the two things they've told me about this thing. Number one, there's more teams than just two teams that people thought were stealing signs, which to me is logical with the new technology. Number two, a lot of people thought this was going on in Houston. Did you ever hear, being around there every day, did you ever hear that the Astros were doing something funny?
I never did in the clubhouse. I mean, I had heard this, stories like a lot of people had. We know the Astros had an employee shooting photos in the Cleveland dugout. We'd heard the rumors about the whistling. I mean, I did hear whistling, but I mean, the ballpark, you don't think about it later. Like, well, yeah, I did hear a lot of whistling, but yeah, I mean, I had no idea that this stuff was going on. I mean, and as you talk to Astros players, and they don't go on the record about this, but they feel pretty confident that the other teams are doing it. I got to think during the MLB investigation that they turned over evidence to incriminate some other teams. I don't know that for sure, but I just get that's the feeling. And what MLB does with that, I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't think any of us that were around the team every day had an idea, because obviously they didn't want anybody to know about it, because they knew it was illegal and shouldn't be done.
Right, but you didn't hear a lot of rumors, because a lot of people said that they got calls. Players have said, we got calls. Watch when you go to Houston. There's something funny going on there. So that it was widespread in baseball. I don't know. That after the fact, a lot of times people say stuff that doesn't turn out to be true. Yeah. I don't know how widespread this really was. I mean, I never heard it. I don't know if you're saying you didn't really hear a lot about this.
No, not really. And I mean, if you told me, oh, the Astros, there's rumors the Astros might be doing this, I'm probably like most people. I'm like, well, this is probably widespread in the league. It's just something everybody does. I mean, clearly they took it to another level and took it way too far, and they're paying the price for it. And they're the first, the whole thing that blew it open, of course, is Mike Fiers going on the record. Are more players going to do that? I don't know. I mean, Mike Fiers might regret doing that because I think his life has been pretty hard since he's done that. And it's going to be really hard when he comes to Houston because he's public enemy number one. So a lot of players who might be considering coming forward might see what Mike Fiers is going through and say, no, thanks. He's going to stay quiet.
I agree with that. It's always hard to be a whistleblower, no question. And do I think there were more teams? Maybe not as extreme as the Astros, but do I think there were more teams trying to do it? I'm sure there were. I mean, teams are always trying to steal signs. Beltran was a guy who always, I know, had the reputation from when he was in New York that he was a guy who always from the dugout liked to steal signs. Hey, Mickey Mantle liked to do that. I mean, Mantle always considered himself someone, and I know a lot of players who told me through the years, I don't want anybody to give me any sign to try and tell me what's going on. I don't want any signals. I don't feel comfortable getting signals. I've had really good hitters tell me that. So it depends on whether. So when I heard Altuve didn't like it, I wasn't surprised because I've heard players tell me that. I've asked them, if you could get signs, would you want them? No, I don't want them. I just want to go up there and react to the ball. I'll do it my way. Let me hit myself. And I've had guys tell me both ways. Now, some guys will say yes. You heard Vlad Guerrero say I could hit 500 if I knew what was coming. So it depends on the guy. But I don't think it's automatic that it makes you better and that everybody wants it. I just never thought that way about sign stealing. So I'm a little in a different camp. Now, I talked with Aaron Boone about it, in the offseason, and he was adamant that it was an enormous advantage. And I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't think it was as big, and he thought it was really big. So it depends on the person. It really does.
Yeah, I think Pete Rose was one of those guys who never wanted to know anything that was coming. But yeah, you're right. I mean, unlike steroids where, you don't have to be, it doesn't take much skill to follow a steroid regimen and plan.
Right.
You still need some incredible skill to put a bat on a ball, even if you know what's coming. Yeah, no doubt it could help. But the fact is, these guys are still amazing athletes who do amazing things. And just because, a fastball's coming or a breaking pitch doesn't mean you're going to hit the ball 400 feet. Maybe it helps, maybe not. Like I say, we just don't know. There'll never be enough evidence to know how much it helps.
Have you had a chance yet? We're talking with Brian McTaggart. Have you had a chance to talk to Hinch or to the deposed general managers since they're gone? Have you had a chance to talk to either one of them?
Yeah, I have talked to A.J. Hinch a couple of times, and I checked in with him, I think, about a week before spring training, a couple of weeks before spring training.
How'd you find him?
And, he was crushed. It was difficult for him not to go to spring training. I think, obviously, he let things go too far. I think he would have obviously done things differently. And I don't know this, but I get the sense that when he knew about this thing, we know he smashed the monitors. I think at the end of the day, it was probably really hard for him to tell his players, don't do this, when the players felt that the team on the other side was doing it as well. Not that makes it right or wrong, but I just thought he thought it would be really hard to tell the players to knock it off.
Do you have any accurate timeline, Brian, on when you think it stopped?
I do not. We know early in 2018. Don't know why. I mean, I guess what we've read is they didn't think it was that effective. Maybe somebody thought somebody was breathing down somebody's neck. Beltran was gone in 2018, and Cora was gone. So maybe they were sort of the ringleaders in this. So maybe the players were like, let's just get rid of this. But no one has really been able to answer definitively why or when it stopped, but it does appear it was early in 2018.
Early in 2018. Do you think did you get the idea that ownership or the Astros regretted that press conference the other day? That obviously could have been handled a little better. Do you think they regretted that?
Yeah, I think they probably do. I mean, what they should have done is just open the clubhouse doors like they did after the press conference, and then every player who was on the 2017 team, and there are 10 of them that are here, every player that was on the team was there. And they did a great job. We talked about that with Correa, and then Springer did a great job. And then, Altuve and Reddick and all those guys, like Verlander. But, we've already heard from Crane about this 2 or 3 times. And I don't think it was, necessarily, helped him or helped the Astros at all to have, him answer some more questions about this. And then, Altuve and Bregman gave these apologies. Well, they also talked inside the clubhouse, and they were
right. They just could have left him outside,
candid.
and Dusty Baker shouldn't have been there. He had nothing to do with this thing. So
Right.
what? Yeah, so
Yeah.
he made
I
no
totally
sense.
agree.
Yeah, he made no
And,
sense.
yeah, and we get why Dusty's here. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he can say, "Hey, I wasn't here. I don't know anything."
Oh, it's perfect.
And,
yeah, it's absolutely
yeah,
perfect.
it's perfect.
And you can see now why a manager. We wondered whether Beltran could get through this, and in the beginning, when I talked to the Met owners about it, I thought Beltran could get through this, and now I see why he couldn't have, because it never would have stopped. It would have gone on it would have been the same thing for Hinch. He never would have been able to do his job this year. It would have been one thing after another after another. They never would have got past it.
Yeah, I agree. And Hinch gave the interview a couple of weeks ago on MLB Network, where he was apologetic and contrite, and I think he was certainly positioning himself to get back into the game soon, and I think he will. I mean, I think his reputation as a manager is good enough to where some team is going to want a great manager, and they'll have. I think Hinch is good enough to deal with the fallout of this on his own for a while, and eventually will settle down. But I thought that was step one for AJ to sort of apologize and sort of put his face out there and let them know how much he was against it and that he wants to get back into managing the team after being out a year.
Brian, tell me, what is the baseball fan who's a diehard Astro fan? Is he protective of the team, or is he on the team right now?
Well, I think like any fan, they're protective of their team, probably to a fault in a lot of cases. I mean, it's obviously proven that the 2017 title is tainted. I mean, that's really not in question.
Right.
How much is tainted, that's for each person to answer. But
No
I think
question.
80% of Astros fans are defiant and say, you know what, we won it, you didn't, and here's a picture of the trophy, and no one's taking that away. There's probably a small factor that are like, boy, this kind of ruins it for me, and I just want to move on and not even think about it. But they're fans; they're going to back their team, good or bad, and it's certainly bad.
And how about the media? Has the media been tough on them, or has the media been okay with them?
So they've been pretty tough. I mean, there were some pretty tough questions on the apology day, and then even yesterday. There were a lot of national reporters, a lot of guys we all know have reputations. Some guys that were on top of this story breaking stuff that have been in the clubhouse the last few days. But the players, I think, understand all that. They know that we have a job to do. And hey, I mean, they were the ones who, at the end of the day, created this problem. And so, that's why I think they've been, willing day after day to answer questions about this stuff. But like we talked about earlier, at some point, I think they're going to say, look, enough is enough. 2020. We're here to play baseball and move forward.
And is there one set of comments from one of the players that was it Bellinger? Was it Trout? Which ones were the ones that bothered him the most, did you think? Which comments publicly that have come out, could you tell?
Well, I think the Bellinger ones. I think that's what set Correa off, saying that, they stole the championship from the Dodgers, and then also Judge stole the MVP from Altuve. I think those are the ones that really pushed Carlos over the edge to do these long interviews that he did, to take up for his teammates, take up for Altuve, and then sort of break down the World Series a little bit and say, hey, here's why the Dodgers lost the World Series. It was this, this, and this, not because we were banging trash cans in Game 5 or whatever. So I know that probably doesn't go over well if you're a Dodger fan. You're like, yeah.
You know what, though? I give Correa credit. I think Correa's been stand up in this thing. I've been impressed by Correa from a distance. I've been impressed by him. I think he's handled himself. I said that the first day. I thought he was the most believable guy, and I thought he was the most credible guy. I thought he was the one that looked like he was really not trying to be evasive. He looked like he was being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, absolutely the most candid. And I think no matter what the Astros say at this point, it's not going to matter to Dodgers fans. It's not going to matter to Astros fans. Short of saying, look, come over, come take the trophy. Here are our rings. You guys take. I mean, that's not going to happen. It's just not realistic. So that's why I just don't know how much longer this can go on. I mean, what more do the Astros need to say to satisfy people? Because there's nothing they can say at this point, I don't think.
No, the only thing they're going to react to next is what happens with Boston, because there's a link there. That's going to be the next thing. I mean, that'll be the only thing that they'll react to, whatever comes out of Boston, which we're all waiting for, which I don't know what's going to be. We'll have to wait and see. But that'll basically be it until we find out just how much the reaction is going to be in each stadium, and then see whether or not they really do do get thrown at a lot, which I think is going to be overrated because I think the commission is going to make sure that doesn't happen. So I think that you're not going to be allowed to throw. I don't expect there to be a lot of throwing at them. I don't think that's going to happen a lot. First of all, and you know this, you've been around long enough. A lot of pitchers don't like to throw at guys anyway. You know that. In the old days with the Yankees, you couldn't get half the pitchers to throw at the Yankees, throw at guys. And Joe Torre didn't like to throw at guys, as a matter of fact. The Red Sox would come in and plunk guys right and left, and the Yankees wouldn't hit anybody. I mean, it used to happen all the time. So a lot of teams don't like even hitting guys anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said earlier, you hit one of our guys, we're going to hit one of yours. And, I think the guys are talking tough now in spring training. But, yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to take the ball. And I don't think they're going to throw after guys. Astros' first road trip, they go to Anaheim. Mike Fiers is on the Angels. Will Mike Fiers face the Astros? Yeah, he's obviously not going to bat. But what is that atmosphere going to be like? And then they go to Anaheim. And there's been stories about Dodger fans buying up all the tickets to go down to Anaheim and harass the Astros. So right out of the gate, it's going to be, even if it dies down over spring training, when the regular season starts up, especially when they go on the road, this is going to be a front and center story.
And your feeling is, knowing this group, and this has been a really good team. I mean, they've been a great team for a couple of years here now, year after year. You think that they will get their backs up as a group and want to show the world something this year, huh?
I've had a couple of players tell me they're really motivated for obvious reasons, and we think we know what those are. And yeah, I mean, I think I think if they stay healthy, they're going to be a force. Are they better than the Yankees on paper? I don't think so.
Well, not with Cole, especially with Cole. Yeah,
Yeah, Cole sort of swings the balance to me. I mean, clearly taking a pitcher of his caliber, but I think they're going to come out very motivated and very determined, and it's kind of us against the world mentality. And I think that's probably what's going to try to carry him through this season.
Tell me what you thought of Cole now that he's here. He was with you. Tell me what you thought of Cole.
Obviously, fantastic pitcher from, when he started his run from May 24th last year through the end of the regular season when he was unbeaten. Probably the most dominant run of pitching I've seen. I've only been around 17 years, but, Clemens, his Cy Young year, never did anything like this. It was just, he was automatic every single night. I've never seen anyone compete quite like him. Just a student of the game, could talk pitching with anybody. I really liked him as a guy, too, just a very fascinating guy, a guy who would break down his outings, almost pitch by pitch in a way that, made even the layman sports writer, struggle to keep up with him. Just a really smart guy, a competitor, and a guy that, I'll miss covering on a day-to-day basis. I don't know how he's been in New York so far, but I think he'll do really well.
Well, he's hit the ground running here, as you would expect. He was a lifetime Yankee fan and everything else, so he's rung the bell the right way. But I'll tell you, when I was impressed by him, I sat next to at Yankee Stadium. I sat right next to the dugout, the game he pitched. About 2 rows back, and he had nothing that day. He was He was struggling the whole day, and he still. What I loved about him was, a lot of guys would have exited after getting through 5 innings. He came back out and stayed in the game and kept competing in that game. Even though he struggled from the first batter of that game with his control, he struggled the whole day, but he really, his competitive, the fight he put in that game was unbelievable. It really was. It was I was incredibly impressed by his performance that day.
Yeah, and you're going to see that. I mean, he's a guy that's not going to give up. He's not going to give in, pitch to pitch, at bat to his bat. And, he got stronger as the year went on. Struck out 326 batters, and he was really motivated as well to perform well in the playoffs. He didn't perform well in the playoffs in 2018. So, I think he's going to do really well up there. Will he fulfill 9 years, $324 million?
No.
I don't think so. But if he has 3 or 4 really good years and they win a couple World Series, that'll be worth it.
Absolutely. And tell me, which guy is the guy who's been the most vocal? Has it been Correa as far as being which guy's telling people they're going to pay for this? Is there one guy who's kind of been the most animated or the most vocal in that way? Is it him or is it somebody else?
Not really. Not a lot of bravado in that. Just it's more of a quiet confidence and like, look, we created this situation and, we have to come out and we're going to be motivated to prove it to ourselves and the others. There's not a lot of beating of the chest in that dugout in the clubhouse right now. And let's rally the troops and all run onto a hill and with a flag and stick it in the ground and say, come and get it. I don't think that outwardly we see that, maybe that's what they, when the season starts, we'll see more of that. But, I think they feel ashamed. I think they're very disappointed. That people are questioning them being the legitimacy of their championship. And I think that can help drive them to another one. They were only eight outs away from getting one last year, and that probably stings and probably motivates them as well.
Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
All right, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you. Brian McTaggart, MLB.com, on Twitter at Brian McTaggart, Back after this. I was very surprised when Beilein went to the pros. I've known Beilein a long time. If you've listened to my programs through the years, you know he was someone I had on the program all the time. He's one of the best offensive coaches I ever experienced in college basketball. A wonderful college basketball coach, tremendous coach. And as far as offensive basketball, coaching teams, getting plays out of bounds, getting plays, out of timeouts, getting, baseline out of bounds plays, side out of bounds plays, getting big plays at right times. I mean, having the right kind of flow. He's a great coach, and he was a college coach. And to me, I was very surprised he went to the pros. And now I'm hearing, you're seeing everything that he's probably leaving. I hope it's not the last stop for him. He's 67 years old. He has not handled the NBA. You see, the NBA is not for every coach. The NBA is a different league. You're going to be dealing with guys who they're basically independent contractors. They know the game. You're not teaching them the game. You got a couple of kids you got to develop who you're teaching the game to. The other guys on your team, they know the game. They know the sets. They know what they're supposed to do. They know what they basically all could coach it. They've been in the league a long time. They understand the sport. They're businessmen. They're like guys with briefcases. They're independent contractors. And it's a whole different way of doing it. And Beilein, from guys I've talked to who know him, has been miserable since the day he went to Cleveland. He went there for the money. He said, you know what? He was upset that one of his recruits, he was upset that the kid left early. He lost the kid early. He was upset, and it was like, I'm tired of this recruiting stuff. And all the coaches get tired of recruiting. Unless you're John Calipari, you get tired of recruiting. And there's a day where I've had coaches tell me, if I didn't have to meet alums and I didn't have to recruit, I would have coached forever. I just couldn't stand recruiting anymore, and I couldn't stand going to banquets anymore. If I could just coach and go to practice. They all love practice. That's their sanctuary. I've never met a good coach who didn't love practice. Loved practice. Practice was always his favorite thing. Every one of them, their favorite thing was practice. They all love practice. That's their office. That's where they fiddle. It's where they're happy. But if you're a college coach, you're a teacher. You're bringing along kids. You're bringing along babies. You're teaching them the fundamentals. And you're also asking kids to do something on a certain level. In the pros, it's different. You're not coaching the same way. And then, he made a comment that got all construed, and all of a sudden now he's a racist, which we all know is a bunch of garbage. This man's been around basketball his whole life. He's been around players his whole life. He's not a racist. He made a comment in frustration that got taken the wrong way, which his own players admitted. But this was not for him. And that's why a lot of time people will say to me, this guy, this college coach should go to the pros. I say, be careful. The pros is not for everybody. There's guys there who understand how the pros work, and that's fine. And there's guys who can build a sanctuary where they can live out of, like you've seen happen in Boston, where he's built something there that he can run players in and out of, and he's been frustrated there too, but he's learned how to do it. He's a great coach, and he's found a way to do it and a system he can live with. Still frustrated, though, at times. And that's why certain guys don't belong in the NBA. and they're smarter to stay where they are. And that's why first of all, John was going to a team that wasn't going to be very good, which is very tough from the college coach. And the college coach goes into that situation where he's going to go to a team that's not going to be any good. He's not going to get the respect that a guy like Beilein's, a lot of those players aren't going to know anything about him. They didn't care if he coached Michigan to the championship game. They don't care about that. I've been in the NBA 10 years. What do I care? Or 8 years. What do I care if you coach the team to a Final Four? I don't care about that. Now, they'll listen to Mike Krzyzewski, who the great ones know, and Mike was smart enough to stay where Mike was offered so many jobs, and he stayed put. Roy Williams, same thing. Right? Jay Wright, same thing. Offered NBA jobs so many times, stay put. Realize they should stay put. And Mike, as an example, has worked with all these guys at the Olympics, and LeBron James worships Krzyzewski. Kobe worships Krzyzewski. So these guys, he could have gone and worked on that level. He could have easily made the transition. But it's a very tricky one to make. And if you're going to be like a Beilein, who was never on the level of a Krzyzewski, but for the people who understood the sport, knew how good he was. He was a guy, when he was a struggling coach, who just everyone knew was really good, and he was beating people, I couldn't get people to hire him, Beilein. I begged people to hire him. And they're like, he's not, yeah. They didn't realize. And then finally got his break, and look what he did at Michigan. But this was I always thought, an awkward step. So am I surprised if in the next 24 hours he's out of there, and now the word's coming out that he's going to be out, or he's supposed to be out? I hope it's not the last stop. I know he's 67. I know he's got a 5-year contract, so it's not going to be about money. But if you're a college and you need a coach, that's your guy. I mean, he is terrific. He is absolutely terrific. And this is just something he's got to chalk up to at 67 as just a mistake. It was a mistake. He was the round peg in a square hole. He just didn't belong there. He's a college coach. And it's been, I think, a very, very tough year for him. And I wish him well, because he's a good guy. He's a very good guy, and he's a really good coach. Back after this.
Mike's on. He's ready to go. On the Fan. New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM. WFAN.
All right, we come to you this evening, as we always do, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila, brought to you by those who drink it on this Tuesday evening. Take you right up until 6:30, right here on the Fan. Kyrie Irving out indefinitely. What a shock. Boy, his heart's really in it this year. I mean, give me a break. Boy, he's been as good as advertised. Hey, thank God Durant's coming. That's all I got to say. I just heard Bob play judge, and the latest about how he can't get over and he won't get over. And you know what? The 2017, and I understand that this is going to go on forever, but the Yankees and the Dodgers just have to stop whining. They just have to. I mean, because the facts, the performance does not back up the story. Yes, they had an intricate sign stealing thing in place. We know that. How much it helped, I really can't answer. I don't know. Which guys took it and which guys didn't, I don't know. But clearly it helped in some way, because otherwise, why would they do it? It's just like steroids. I mean, they clearly help. Otherwise, why would you take them? But here's the problem. If the Yankees got beat in these games in Houston, if they got beat 11-10 and 9-8, and they pounded the baseball, but they couldn't get the Astros out, I'd say, you know what? The Yankees got a gripe because it clearly helped their offense. The Yankees lost those games in Houston because they couldn't hit. And what did their pitchers have? Any advantage that I know about? Did the sign stealing help their pitchers? Because the Yankees didn't hit in Houston. They lost there because they didn't hit. Game 1, the Yankees lose 2-1. They get 5 hits in the game. 2-1. They get 5 hits. Brett Gardner got a hit. Judge got a hit. Castro got a hit. Bird got 2 hits. Remember Bird? Remember him? That's it. 1 run, 5 hits. Game 2. Yankees get beat. 2-1. 2-1 again. 1 run, 5 hits. Gardy got a hit. Didi got a hit. Castro got a hit. Hicks got a hit. Frazier got a hit. 1 run, 5 hits. So they lose the first 2 games 2-1, 2-1. Okay? In games 6 and 7, they don't get any hits in those games either. They score 1 run in game 6. They score no runs in game 7. The Yankees didn't hit in any of these games. They did not hit. They did nothing offensively. How are they going to win if they can't score? They scored 3 runs in 4 games in Houston. I mean, how are you going to win? I mean, that's the bottom line. I understand the Yankees. You know what? The Yankees did a good job, okay? They did a good job in the games in New York. But it was because they scored runs in New York. They scored 8 runs in Game 3. They scored 6 runs in Game 4. They scored 5 runs in Game 5. They scored 1 run in Game 6. They scored no runs in Game 7. They couldn't hit Charlie Morton. They couldn't hit McCullers. They couldn't hit Verlander. They scored no runs in these games and had no hits. I mean, if you can't get any hits in these games, how are you going to win the game? If you can't score any runs and you can't hit, how are you going to win the games? How can you complain when it was your offense that got shut down? It wasn't them pounding the baseball. They won 2 of those games 2-1. And the other games, they didn't need a whole lot of runs. They never needed more than 2 runs to win a game in Houston. They won 2-1, 2-1. What was it, 4-0 the other game? 5-0, 4-0, and 5-0. I got to look. 2-1, 2-1. 7-1, and 4-0. That's it. So the Yankees in 4 games in Houston score 3 runs. If you score 3 runs in 4 games, how can you whine about that they're stealing signs and they're pounding your pitching? They didn't pound the pitching. Now, did they hit better in Houston than they did in New York? Yes, they did. But a lot of teams do that. Did they get help there? I'm going to assume they got some help there. But the Yankees, if you remember that series, what I took as the theme of that series was Yankees could hit their bullpen, and they went to Morton and McCullers, and the Yankees couldn't figure out Morton or McCullers for their life in that series. Throw in Verlander, and now you have the Yankees not scoring any runs in those games. They scored 1 run, 1 run, 1 run, and no runs. And that had nothing to do with the signs. That had nothing to do with anything. They lost because they couldn't hit the Astro pitching. The Yankees, you're the Yankees. Act like it. Stop whining about losing. You lost. Yes, they got an advantage. We know that. Have the Yankees ever gotten an advantage? Did the Yankees want people to whine about the fact that they used guys who used steroids in series where they won championships? Do they want to hand those back? Of course not. Nor should they have to give them back. When A-Rod knocked in 16 runs on his way to leading the Yankees to a championship. And without A-Rod, they don't win that championship in 2009. Without him, they don't get out of the first round. Without him, they don't win. We don't know if A-Rod was doing something or not. Obviously, at different times he was. So we don't know what year he was or what year he's not. But again, we know that through the years, all different Yankees have done steroids. Do we want to forget about that, or do we want to remember that? Did I hear the Yankee fans saying, let's get back to Jeffrey Mayer game? That play was absurd. You want to give that back? Or Phil Cuzzy's calls? I mean, this whining from the Yankees, this guy, you're above the Yankees. Stop. Let the Dodgers whine if they want to whine. They look bad doing it. The Yankees look bad whining about this. You're the Yankees. You got to whine about championships you didn't win. You weren't good enough. You haven't been good enough in a long time to win a championship. Go win one. You're good enough this year. Go win one. I guarantee there were other teams out there who were trying to steal signs. I guarantee the Astros weren't the only team. And I don't know what team was and what team wasn't. I don't have any idea. And did the Astros cheat? Yes. Have they been hit by it? Yeah, they've been hit by it. The players haven't been hit, but I didn't think the players should be hit. And the manager lost his job, rightly so. And the general manager lost his job, rightly so. And they were fined and they were losing draft picks, all rightly so. But the idea that the Yankees can't get over this series because of the fact they were cheated, get past it. How about playing better? Be good enough that they can't take it from you. Then you'd be considered Yankees. Stop the whining. Man. You're the Yankees. Stop whining about it already. No one's going to put a little gift wrap on a trophy and hand it to you. You didn't win it. Sorry you haven't won in a long time. Go change it. Go win. When the other teams didn't beat the Yankees, you know what? I didn't hear them whine like this. Stop whining. Let the Dodgers whine if they want to whine. They've proved they can't win a big series. They cough up everything. Every time there's a chance to win something, they cough it up. That's their problem, not the Astros. Was the Astros their problem last year? How can you score 3 runs in 4 games in Houston and whine that you got cheated? It's a bad look back after this. 1 run, and no runs in the 4 games in Houston. And get 20 hits in the entire 4 games. 20 hits. And no big hits. Okay? You cannot make it about the fact that they were getting the signs. Because you lost that because you didn't hit. You hit at Yankee Stadium. You scored 8, 14, 19 runs in the 3 games in New York. And you scored 3 runs in the 4 games in Houston. Had nothing to do with their sign stealing. Had nothing to do with it. Had to do with the fact that you couldn't hit their pitching. They beat you with guys who were breaking off nasty curveballs, whether it was Morton, whether it was McCullers, whether it was Verlander. They beat you with their pitching. That's how they won that series. I'm not saying they didn't do anything, okay? So if you want to taint their World Series, more power to you. I'm not a believer in taking the trophy away because I don't think anything's gained by that. He still won it in everybody's mind. So I don't think anything happens when a championship is vacated, okay? When a player when a team has a great run in the NCAA tournament and a year later they vacate that tournament because the guy signed with an agent a week before the Final Four, and they take away the wins. They didn't take away the wins from basketball fans' minds and hearts. They remember the games. So it's the same thing. The series got played. We know it got played. Baseball's got to do a better job enforcing the rules. These guys cheated. I understand they cheated. But when's the cheating okay, and when is it on the line that they take away the championships? When is that the case? And if you're a Yankee who thinks that they cheated last year, then I want you to go down and ask Cole. Go right down to your teammate now and ask him if they cheated last year. Don't make the accusation in the paper. Go down. You got a guy who was in their locker room last year, who was their star last year. Go down there and say, I think you cheated last year. Now tell me you did or you didn't. Make the accusation when you got guys in the room that you're going to try and win with this year, and you're making the accusation about him from last year? As Torres just did? But enough. I mean, get a couple of hits. The Yankees didn't hit at all in those games in Houston. Which game were they supposed to win? When they scored one run, or no runs? Enough whining. Or we'll talk about, was it cheating when the Yankees played with all those players who were on steroids? Or was it not? Or is that not cheating? Or is that okay because it's the Yankees won? Got to be somewhat consistent with this stuff. All right, let me get some calls in. David in Connecticut. What's up, David?
So, Mike, when did you become an apologist for the Houston Astros?
Why am I apologist? I'm being objective.
You used to be a decent person.
Oh, come on. Get Goodbye. I used to be a decent person because I'm saying something against the Yankees, so now I'm a bad person? I'm being objective here. I'm not going to get the pom-poms out here. The Yankees didn't win. You're the Yankees. Win it on the field. You're the Yankees. You're the Yankees of Ruth, DiMaggio, Mantle, Gehrig. Win it on the field. Don't whine for something you lost. Now I'm an apologist for the Astros. I don't even care. I could care less about the Astros. I care about the Yankees whining. They didn't win. They lost. Suck it up. Don't whine about it now. They didn't hit. Tell me how that Yankees scoring 3 runs in 4 games had something to do with what happened there. Get a couple of hits, you could have turned those games around. Joe in Wyckoff. What's up, Joe?
Mike, I've been listening to you for over 30 years, and I appreciate and understand all your opinions, whether they're right, whether they're wrong. I do like to listen to you. But I just want to, I know that you're short for time, so I wanted, 2 things I wanted to bring up. As far as this whole thing about the stealing, it's got to stop because everybody's got a microphone in somebody's face on TV, and it's going to ruin the entire season coming up if we don't stop it. It's just got to end. If Manfred's got to do something or whatever, something's got to be done.
Hey, listen, you got to let this story run its course, Joe. It's going to run its course eventually. You got to let it run its course. These stories are, just like you got tired of the steroid stories that were out there forever. How many A-Rod steroid stories were there? 1,000? 2,000? I mean, so you got to let these things run their course. They'll run their course. I know it gets tedious. There's no way around it. But the problem is, someone makes a comment, then they got to run back to the Astros for a comment. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. And listen, it's going to be big when the Astros come here. And everybody has a right to boo the Astros, jeer them, yell at them, call them cheaters. Nothing wrong with that. But the Yankees didn't win, so they've got to stop whining about they didn't win, okay? That's the part I don't like. I'm not saying the Astros didn't cheat. They did cheat. But, so that's fine. But the Yankees, no one's going to give them the championship. They didn't win it. Okay, you're the Yankees.
I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you. I just want to.
I know you're tired of the story, which I understand completely. Listen, you want to get on to the baseball season. I completely understand, Joe. You're not wrong. Thanks for the call. Drew in Trenton. What's up, Drew?
Oh, hey, Mike. I really enjoyed the interview with the beat reporter. Can I ask a question about the NBA?
Go ahead.
Oh, great. What do you think about the buyouts after the trade deadline? I think it's kind of ridiculous that you can just let the deadline go, and all of a sudden you have all these guys changing teams. I think they kind of like baseball. Make it a hard salary deadline. Trade deadline, and that's it. You want to get bought out, fine, but you can't play for another team.
I agree with you. I think I totally agree with you. The process doesn't make sense. If you're gonna you want to be equitable. And thanks for the call about the movement. I totally agree. And that's it. You just want to make it fair. Now, most of those teams are not in a position to be able to add, very few of those teams that are any good. I mean, Houston just added a couple players. But again, you're not going to get anything that meaningful. We know that. No one's going to let you do that, and it's not going to happen. It's not like it's going to change anything enormously. It really isn't. Okay? I mean, it's not going to be something that is overwhelming, all right, in any way. But, again, I agree with you. I think you make a hard, fast deadline, and that's it. And that's basically it. That should be the deadline. I agree. Stu in Long Island. What's up, Stu?
Hey, Mike. I agree that the Yankees don't deserve the title, and you can't take it away from the Astros. That's ridiculous because the games were played and the Yankees lost.
Right.
However, I think one thing everybody's missing in terms of the Yankees not scoring in that they didn't hit, but you can't assess what the Astros would have done if they didn't have the sign. There's no way to assess that. So I think.
Wait. Give it to me one more time. Give it to me one more time. What did you just say?
You can't assess what the Astros would have hit like in those series at home in 2017 in the ALCS without knowing how much effect the sign stealing had. You can't give.
I understand, but unless the Yankees were going to win the games 1-0, they couldn't win the games. Okay, the Yankees, if they had scored a modicum of runs, if they had scored 8 or 10 runs there in 4 games, if they had scored 3 or 4 runs a game, you'd have a better argument. The Yankees scored none, 1, 1, and 1, which means you would have had to shut the Astros out to win the game. That's right. You got to hit
extreme assessment.
Yeah, you got to hit more than that. That's like saying that the Astros couldn't score a run on their own, which we know is ridiculous. Okay, the Astros didn't have to score a lot to win. The Yankees when the Yankees were in Yankee Stadium, they scored 8, 6, and 5 runs. The 4 games in Houston, they scored 1, 1, 1, and none. They can't complain when they don't hit. The other team, their pitchers beat them. Their hitters didn't beat them. Their pitchers beat them. So when their pitchers beat them, they can't complain about it. They just can't because the pitchers didn't get any advantage. So to me, that just doesn't give you a leg to stand on. If you had hit and lost the games 10-9, you would have a nice complaint. Hey, listen, who knows what they would have scored if they weren't getting the signs. Okay, I'll buy that. But they didn't need to score a lot of runs, and they didn't score a lot of runs except for one game. They scored 7. The other games, they were down in runs scored. They scored 2 and 2 and won 2-1 and 2-1. The Astros pitched great against the Yankees in Houston. That's what won the series. Thanks for the call. Justin in Floral Park. What's up, Justin?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How are you, man?
Good.
I agree with you 1,000% about 17, but you don't think that they were still doing it in 19?
I have no idea. I have no information. Listen, Beltran wasn't there. Cora wasn't there. Listen,
Mike, Altuve.
I don't know. Listen, I don't know.
It's very suspicious, Mike.
There's been no. Listen, if you bring evidence that they did something in 19, I'll listen to it. I have no idea.
Mike, Chapman's laughing at the mound. You know Chapman's never laughed. He's a competitor.
Listen,
I mean, that ball went to the moon. That Altuve
listen,
hit.
Chapman couldn't get it. He knew what was coming. I knew what was coming. You knew what was coming. You know what? Chapman couldn't find the strike zone.
I hear you.
So the bottom line is that, you know what? To me, the guy's a great hitter. I don't know what was going on.
I want to see him do it now. I want to see him hit 320 now. If he hits 320 now, I'll give him the credit. But I think
here's the thing, though. Here's the one thing, though, Justin. And I'm the guy who got criticized in the past for knocking Altuve, okay?
Right.
Here's the thing. I went and looked. The guy had an OPS on the road that year in the regular season by 200 points.
Yeah, I know.
Well, wait a second. How does that help him in the MVP if he hit much better on the road than he did at home?
No, you're right, but it's very suspicious, Mike. It's just something that, you don't
listen, I don't know if you got evidence about – listen, I don't have any evidence about 19, and if something went on in 19, you know what? I'll listen, and thanks for the call.
Mike,
go ahead.
Do you think this owner knew about it? Because I think he did, and I don't like this Jim Crane guy. I met him before. He's a very cocky, arrogant man. I think this guy knew what was going on.
I'll tell you this. I have no evidence that he knew. If he knew, baseball went soft on him. Thanks for the call. I don't know, but would I be shocked if he knew? I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't know that he knew. So I can't answer that. There's no way for me to answer that. The only way we'd find that out is if one of the guys who got fired gave him up. And then baseball would have had to throw the book at him. Because there was no evidence. They said there was no evidence that the owner knew. So I don't have any evidence. And like I said, I have no evidence of 19. You saw Hinch say, and everybody say, that there was no buzzer system. They'd never seen a buzzer system. I've never seen a buzzer system in baseball, so I don't know that they had one or didn't. I have no idea. You just heard him say that Altuve, Correa said it. Harold Reynolds said 4 players told him that Altuve wouldn't take the signs. So I don't know what's true and what's not true. Only thing I'm saying is this. Did the Astros cheat? Yes. You want to get on them? God bless you. Remember this. Did cheating just start now, or was there other cheating in other years that has been overlooked, like steroids? And number 2, did the Yankees do anything offensively to earn a win in those games in Houston? The answer is absolutely no. And that had nothing to do with anything except their pitching prowess and their ability to get the Yankees out. If the Yankees had hit better, they could have won. That's on the Yankees. That's not on the sign stealing. Did they cheat? Yes. I completely said they did. If you want to get on their championship, you don't want to recognize their championship, so be it. But I don't think the Yankees should be whining. I think they should act like Yankees and go win it fair and square on the field. That's how Yankees should act. Yankees win enough that they should have to understand that they win when they win it on the field. Don't ask somebody to give you something. They look like they're begging. We'll see you tomorrow. Brought to you by Casamigos Tequila, as always.